recording the meeting, if that's okay with you. I wanted to make it available to parents later. I will repost the link to the slideshow that we're going through, because I have learned if you join after something, you don't see anything in the chat. So I'm going to present my screen as well, just so you guys can kind of see what I'm going through with each slide. But if you are on a computer, you should be able to see the slides as well. Let's see here. Present my screen. A window. All right, so you guys should be seeing this presentation I'm pulling up over here. And I've got the benefit of having a separate screen. I learned quickly that if you don't have a separate screen, when you present something, you can't see anybody. And so anyway, well, I've got until about 9:47 today, because I'm going to go cover a social studies class that we don't have coverage for. And so hopefully we will get everybody's questions answered and get you this information. But appreciate y'all jumping on. I think the first thing I wanted to start out with is, we know that this is not ideal and that this has been a crazy start to the school year. As we were preparing and looking at kind of what the options might be this summer, I think we made a lot of plans for what things would look like, and then we have had to change those plans often and frequently since the school year has gotten started. Admit here, another person. So we are obviously in this together, and we are doing this together with you guys having your kids at home 3 days a week. I think the partnership that we have with our families and our parents has never been more important right now. And so I think that's why I wanted to just provide a chance to connect and to give you guys some information, but also I would love your feedback as well at the end of this presentation that I've made, because we've sent out a ton of communication. We are working extremely hard to ensure we're providing the very best opportunities for our kids. And yet at the same time, I realize that everybody's got different situations, and it may not be working as great as it possibly could for everybody. And so if there's things that we can do to improve, of course, I want to be aware of that. So we are specifically focusing on hybrid learning for this conversation. So our teachers, making sense of their hybrid schedules, it has been a challenge for sure. But I am so impressed with the work that they are doing in terms of juggling having kids 4 days a week in front of them, but then also providing these opportunities at home. I mean, I've got teachers working hours and hours and hours outside of school, really trying to make sure that they're creating meaningful things for kids. So a couple of the challenges that we're up against. We know that most students do best in person full-time. If I had my way, we would be full-time, absolutely, barring all this COVID stuff. But we know that that's the best situation for kids, is to have them in front of us every day of the week. We ended last school year in a remote learning environment, with hold harmless grades and expectations. And I think we saw quite a significant dip in participation, as most of our schools did in the school district, with, kids just not really engaging and following through. And, teachers were obviously doing the best they could from home, but that was a tough end of the school year, which I think because of some of that, obviously there's some learning gaps that might exist with kids maybe not getting access to some of the content or the curriculum that we normally would have covered had we been in school full time. And then, with having kids only here 3 days a week, with that Friday being online, it's cutting out that time that we have for that live instruction. So I think the other piece that, teachers have had to shift what they normally did and what they are used to doing this school year. And like I said, it's been a significant challenge. And then we also realize that there's different structures for kids at home. We have some families who have the benefit of having a parent who might be able to be at home with their student. And we have other families that we know don't have a parent at home who's able to be with their student. And there just may not be that structure and accountability at home. And so we realize that. And so with all this, I think we're just trying to make sure we give things that we know will help students to be successful and will help you guys as parents be armed with the information you need to get through this as best we can. So couple things, like I said, our teachers are working extremely hard to make sure that we are still moving kids forward and getting them ready and prepared for the next school year, for the next grade level, meeting all the standards and targets for this school year. And we are having frequent conversations with teachers about, are you not just covering the material, but are you ensuring kids are mastering it, and what are you doing to differentiate? And I think what we've been able to do is ensure that our class sizes with these cohorts that we have are as small as they possibly can be, so that when kids are here, we are providing as individualized instruction as possible and building relationships with kids. I would say we are creating a generation of teachers that will advocate for smaller class sizes, probably like never before after this, because we've got class sizes of no more than 15, 16 kids, throughout our building. And some of them, I was in class yesterday of 4 kids, on there for one day. So the ability to connect with kids and provide that differentiated help and instruction is just, unlike anything we've ever experienced right now. And so because of that, we're trying to maximize that time and that we have with kids each day of the week. So a couple things, I want to go through, and again, I know some parents who may not be able to be here for this might be the ones I really need to get this information to. That's why we're recording this, to get it out. But I think the things I want to share are some tips that you can help your students with at home. And some of this is going to feel maybe repetitive of some of the things we've already sent out. And then also what you can do to help them set up for success at school when they're here for the in-person days. So I think first things first is making sure that they have a distraction-free workspace at home as much as possible. And I know for some kids that's easier than others, and some families may not have a space. But as much as kids can have one space that they are consistently using, that they know, like, this is my workspace, I'm in my work zone, I'm in my work mindset, schoolwork mindset, that helps create that norm and that routine for students. And so I would strongly recommend that. Establishing a routine is huge right now as well. I think we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second with some of the schedules we've proposed, with kids having a consistent bedtime and wake up time as much as possible every day, Sunday night through Thursday night, and Friday morning, just because I think we're seeing that inconsistency because, they're not here 3 days a week. Even though Fridays we do have that schedule kids are following, we're seeing a significant inconsistency in sometimes the sleep kids are getting. And so when they do come to school, they're maybe less engaged. And I'll be honest, some of those morning classes are rough when they've had 3-4 days off and they haven't been at school. And so I think as much as we can provide that consistent structure. And then lastly, we really are expecting students to spend at least about 4 hours of schoolwork when they're at home on their home days. And so Fridays, obviously we're following a schedule, and I'll show that here in a second. And we realize that this is what we're planning for, but it may not be exactly how it works out for every student. I've heard from parents who are saying my student's spending way more than 4 hours, and I've heard from parents that my kid is spending less than 4 hours. So I've got the whole gamut in terms of what I'm hearing. I think if you ever have concerns regarding what your student is being asked to do at home, always start with the teacher. Reach out to the teacher, say, hey, here's what I'm seeing at home. I just want to give some feedback. And because I think what we're trying to do is we're planning for, something that's going to meet the needs of all of our kids. And our teachers are doing the best to differentiate for students. And so there may be different assignments for different groups potentially in classes, but depending on what teachers are seeing. But I think, if you're seeing something that's significantly exceeding that 30 minutes per class, or it's significantly less, please give our teachers some grace. Of course, we're trying to do the best we can, but if you're seeing that consistently, if there's just a one-off day where it's crazy, that may have just been, a misjudgment in planning. But if there is a day or consistently where you're seeing that, please feel free to reach out to the teacher. That's your best place to start. to let them know, hey, here's what I'm seeing. Just want to FYI. And because if we don't know, sometimes we may not realize that it's something that we could have done differently. So here is our schedule that we put out there in the guide to e-learning, just a proposed schedule for what school could look like for kids at home. And so as you can see here, it's very structured. I think getting up by 7 o'clock in the morning, it would be a really, really good idea. It gives them a little bit extra sleep than they would on a normal school day, but still gets them up, gets them in that routine. And then you can see here we've got a schedule throughout the day with some breaks built in and lunch built in, and then attendance on these days. So kids can now, I know in the last couple of weeks it's changed, and I know initially it wasn't working, but so kids need to go on an Infinite Campus, and they need to hit check-in when they log into Infinite Campus, and that checks them in for the whole day. And they need to do that by 10 a.m. each day. And so what that will do is it'll show the teachers that they checked in. However, the attendance every day and for the week is really being verified by that completion of the Google Classroom activities, assignments that students are doing. So, a kid might log in Infinite Campus and hit check in, and it might mark them as present for all their classes. But then if they don't do anything, if they don't engage what teachers, assigned, they're not going to get credit for that participation. Which as a parent, you will see a little message that says ELNP, and that stands for e-learning not participated. If for some reason your student didn't do, whatever was assigned for that day or didn't engage in it. And I think the really important thing is that they do it on the assigned day. Because, if you're an A cohort kid, what you do at Monday in school in person should prepare you for what you're going to be doing at home the next day. And vice versa, if you're a B cohort student, what you've been assigned to do at home on Monday should be preparing you and leading you into what you're doing at school on Tuesdays. So if kids are not completing or engaging in those things, they're really going to be behind when they get to school. And so I know our teachers have been flexing and trying to adjust to ensure that if a student didn't complete what they needed to, they're allowing them to catch up. But again, that's missed time to move forward with the curriculum and ensure that they're continuing to, get the entire scope of what we're trying to cover throughout the course of the year to get them prepared for the next school year. So, anyway, attendance will be verified by teachers based on that completion of activities and so forth. And then on Fridays, our e-learning schedule, I know we've sent this out, we've got it posted on our website as well, it is as follows. And the really important thing with this is that kids are logging on as soon as that class starts. Teachers have provided a Google Meet link through their Google Classroom where, kids should know by now how to access that. But, I think that's important that kids are logged on, ready to go. And it's a full morning. We realize that. But I think the point of condensed classes on Friday was, it's hard to sit in a 50-minute class for 8 periods a day when you're at home. And so, in order to provide a concentrated, maybe more manageable time for students, from at home, we condense that. I think you'll find most of the middle schools across Douglas County have done something very similar on Fridays. And then that afternoon time is really where teachers are trying to either meet with students individually, provide small group instruction to groups that they've identified through the week that they need to pull, or it could be office hours where kids can hop on and ask teachers questions. So every teacher is using that time differently, but that should be a time that's available. And if your student needs help with something or they've got some questions, Friday afternoon is a great time for them to reach out to their teacher and say, and schedule it ahead of time. Hey, Miss Weaver, or hey, so-and-so, can I check in with you Friday afternoon about some questions I had regarding something we had earlier this week? That's a great opportunity. Of course, they can ask questions anytime. They can reach out to the teacher anytime. But if there's a specific time where they need help with something, that Friday afternoon is really a great time to schedule that with teachers. And then attendance for those sessions on Friday is really marked based on who's hopping on, who's on that online session. And I know I've talked to a couple parents who have different situations, on Fridays, and obviously we're willing to work with you guys as parents as far as what your situation is. I think we just want to make sure kids are engaging, they're hopping on, they're doing what we need to do. because that's another day we have for that online live instruction, and we don't want to miss that. So that is our Friday e-learning schedule. And then I want to talk about just a couple things as far as how you can set your student up for success at school. So like I was talking about, on those days where kids may have been at home for a few days and maybe the bedtime and the morning routine wasn't as consistent. Like I said, yesterday morning was a little rough when I was in some classes, and it's like pulling teeth sometimes. Kids are so quiet and they're tired because they haven't had that consistent routine. So as much as we can help students to have that consistent bedtime and wake up time, that's huge. Please make sure your students got their charged device every day when they come to school, because we are obviously, because kids are on their devices at home, a lot of times it's a continuation of some of those things at school on Google Classroom. And so having their charger is huge too. I know that's one more thing to lug back and forth, but it's really important to make sure they've got all those supplies. And then that they have everything that they needed to complete when they were at home done. Because like I said, each day leads into the next day, prepares them for the next day. And so, going through their Google Classroom each day that they're at home, going through their to-do list, there's when you go into Classroom, there's a little pancake, we call it the pancake up in the top left. It's 3 lines. If you click on that, there's a little drop down that will show up that says to do on it. And that's where your students can see everything that's been assigned that they either have yet to complete or need to complete. And then along with that, every student should be using a planner. So every day, your students should have things that they've recorded from their classes that their teacher said, this is what's due for today, and this is what is now you need to do tomorrow when you're home. So a planner is really something we're trying to emphasize. It's one of those AVID instructional strategies of organization that we're trying to emphasize, so that when our kids leave here and head to Ponderosa or wherever they're going, that they've got that habit of organization and keeping up with things. So that's something you should ask your students at home about. Hey, where's your planner? Show me what you have written down. And what we tell our students to do is after you complete things, you can either cross it off, you can highlight it. But showing that they've completed things is an important part of just keeping up with it. So those would be some of the tips for success at school. And honestly, that's the biggest thing that those are some of the biggest things I wanted to emphasize, because I realize the more information I throw at you, the easier this could get very complicated. And I know we're trying to keep things as simple as possible right now, because we know that this is a tough environment. People are stressed. I think there's families that are super, high anxious about, the virus and getting sick and staying healthy. And there's other families that, are just ready to be done with this whole thing and ready to go back to normal. And we get that. So we're trying to obviously be understanding and be flexible with all this. But I want to take some time just to hear from you guys on what are you seeing, what's working, what's not working, and really get some feedback so that we can see if there's anything we can do better. So you can unmute yourself, you can put something in the chat if you'd like, but would love to take some time just to get some feedback from any of you that have anything. And if you don't have any and you want to jump off, that's fine too. Or if you have questions, happy to help with anything I can.
I have a 6th grader that's in AVID, and I am beyond impressed with how organized they've helped her be through this, kind of rough new situation. So I just want to say thank you to the AVID program, because I think that that's the only reason that my child is surviving this, all these changes and stuff. It's really kept her organized.
Great. That's good to hear.
Yeah, and I would echo that. I don't have a child in AVID, but I think that I have 3 kids, 2 at Condo and 1 at Sagewood, and I think one of my kids is really organized, and he's thriving the best, and the other 2 are just kind of like trying to figure things out on a day-to-day basis. So I just wrote down a note. Maybe I'll incentivize them to keep a good planner. But one thing I did want to mention is what I've noticed for all 3 of my kids is the class that they're struggling the most in is math. And I think it's partly because they have such a wide period of time where they weren't consistently doing math with going into the quarantine back in March. And so I've just noticed it consistently between all three kids. And then, so we spent a few weeks trying to get them, up to speed, and now it's going much smoother. But I think if you could encourage the math teachers to appreciate the fact that, there's been a long time where they may not have been consistently doing math every day, that would help. I'm actually going to reach out to my son's teacher at Sagewood and see if he can redo some of the math classes or assignments that he previously hadn't done, in order to, because now they're locked, and so he can't get in it, but he needs to improve that and redo them. But anyway, that's an observation I have, math in particular.
Absolutely. Yep.
So first, I'd like to commend you on having this meet.
Rob, you froze on me. I can't hear you. I don't know about anybody else. Oh, technical difficulties. Well, I'm sure he'll jump back on in a second.
I just wanted to say again, thank you for having this meeting, and wanted to definitely say all the teachers I think are doing an amazing job, especially in the circumstances that they have. I do have a 6th grader there, and my only comment is that it's a huge learning curve, obviously, for any 6th grader, going from elementary to now you have 7 classes and you have 7 things of homework. But not all of the teachers are putting in to-do assignments. And I've even gone after him to double check that he's done all of the work, and I'm still getting missing assignments because it is only in the classwork as like a verbal thing. There's no due date on anything. So he's fallen way behind, but it's because there's no due dates. He didn't know. I mean, obviously, yes, that is a learning curve too. Don't get me wrong, that's partly him, but that if it says it's going to be due with not an actual date, then you still need to do it as soon as possible.
Right.
So that's just a 6th grade thing, but having the teachers, because one of the teachers last Friday apparently verbally told them in first period that after class, you need to rewatch this thing and bring something with you to school on Monday. But it was never an actual assignment. So it was never in the to-do things. So unless you went back through the classwork for the 4 things on each of those classes, you did not find them.
So the verbal assignments or the classwork that's put out there without a due date is not showing up in a to-do list because it doesn't have that, assigned.
It's not an assignment. It's things in classwork only.
Sure.
So we found several of those types of things, and it's much more consistent in like 3 classes. I mean, the other ones are doing an amazing job of always having it say assignment, or actually even, hey, there's nothing due, but you don't get that little bubble of there is something due. So it doesn't show up in the little thing of to do, not even on their specific page, And I only found out by accident because I finally figured out that I needed to have the portal and all of the notifications, and that it was missing. And it still took us 15 minutes to go find whether it was through Clever or where the actual assignment was posted to even find it, to go back and do it.
Yeah.
I mean, and luckily, yes, the teachers are definitely giving grace as well, which we appreciate, since it's now 3 days late.
Right.
But I would say if we could, by all means, encourage the teachers, if they're going to put either verbal things or things in classwork, to also do the one extra step to make it an assignment with a due date.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate that feedback.
Like I said, I mean, they're all doing an amazing job, but and he's actually doing really good in math. So I don't know if it's the teacher, but the math thing seems to be doing okay for him.
Cool. Thanks, Dan. Rob, we lost you, and then I see you're back on here. Maybe you can try again.
Awesome, thank you. So I've got the luxury of being a realtor. So I've got kind of an open schedule. I'm actually got an appointment. I'm sitting in my truck. I logged in, but there's a lot of parents that possibly didn't know about this because we're all busy. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to see if we may be able to do something like after work hours where more people can attend if they want to.
Sure.
And also, like on the Chaparral parents page, which you guys aren't Chaparral, obviously, there was a suggestion. My wife actually made the suggestion too. My daughter and son are struggling really bad with all of this. My daughter's having a lot of emotional issues, just depression and just not doing well. And what a recommendation would be, and obviously you guys are doing everything that you can. The teachers are doing awesome, and they're really trying with what we're in this world we're dealing with. But if we could do something like, where it's Zoom on Monday, and then your cohort A is in class. So, because my daughter, she's asking, me like, hey, how do you do, what's a jogging sentence? And I'm like, a jogging sentence. And so I guess a jogging and a run-on. So there's all these things I don't know. I'm not a teacher, and I'm not there all the time either. So I really think if something could get to the school board to where we could get it to where we had something with some regularity to it, that would be really, really good. And then, I commend all of you guys for what you're doing. There's got to be something different. And I know it's a work in progress, living and breathing, but like I want my kids to excel and succeed just like everyone else,
Cutting out again on us, Rob. Shoot. Well, I appreciate Rob's one suggestion of doing this after hours. I think I absolutely are going to look at doing that. And I think the second thing of, the regularity, I know that, in an ideal world, we would provide live instruction 5 days a week, whether kids are at home or at school. And I think, unfortunately, the equity among all of our students to be able to hop on and access live instruction is not there. As much as we'd love to say every kid could jump on for a live class at every time, or we could record every class and put it out there. We honestly don't have the technology to do it. We'd have to stream classes. So there's streaming services we'd have to get. I know we got a lot of opportunity to request different things that could be paid for out of the CARES Act money that got passed. And frankly, we've received a ton of stuff. But that was one of the things I know I'd asked for was technology devices that we could have in every single classroom with a streaming service. And because of equity and not being able to provide that at all of our schools, that wasn't something that was granted. So, I know that there have been some teachers that have recorded lessons or recorded things for kids when they're home, or they've found other lessons, maybe produced by somebody else for kids at home. And, but I know that it's definitely not ideal. And unfortunately, it's part of the challenge and the feasibility of just what we're in right now. Even with not providing live instruction 5 days a week, and it being that more asynchronous where kids, can hop on and do it kind of at their schedule when they're at home. Even that is taking my teachers, hours and hours and hours outside of school just to prepare for that. And if you were to prepare like a live lesson or a lesson that kids would watch at home, that would be even more time. And honestly, I have done everything I could possibly do to take things off of my teachers' plates so far this year because I think everybody's just stressed and overwhelmed. And so, I appreciate Rob's suggestion. And obviously, if there's anything we can do to improve, I'm of course open to it. And the live instruction would be ideal, but unfortunately, it's only 3 days a week. That is the best that we can do right now, and just given the constraints that we have. So, any other thoughts or feedback?
I was going to add one thing in talking about stressed and overwhelmed parents. I work from home most of the time, and I was talking to somebody, and they said that they had to pull their kid for complete online learning because they couldn't take their kid to and from school because of their work schedule. And I felt terrible because I would have been willing to take their kid to school. So if you learn of that, I live we live in Perdera, but in this area. And I'm happy to, give people rides to school or, so if there's a parent who is really struggling with getting kids to school and you learn of that, reach out to me and I could probably make that work in some way.
Awesome. Thank you, Heather. I did have quite a few, I wouldn't say quite a few. I had a handful of parents that I had conversations with like that. And my first question was, is there anybody we can carpool with? Is there anybody we can, and we even had a couple of families that we reached out to other people who lived around them just to see, hey, would you be willing to take this kid to school? Because they couldn't provide transportation without, buses not being an option for anybody within 5 miles of Sagewood. It's prevented a ton of people from getting their kid to school, even though it's 2 days a week. And so I appreciate that offer.
Yeah, you may even want to keep like a list of people willing to do that, and because I'm happy to drive somewhere and pick up kids. I mean, we can figure it out. It
Right.
would be silly, especially especially because the school starts pretty early. So for me, I can start after I drop off kids from school. So
Thank you. Rob, we lost you again. I don't know. You were in the middle of talking through, if the district could come up with something as far as other options to keep things consistent. I respond. Well, there we go. Technical difficulties. It's tough when you're doing this on the road. I've joined a few of these because it seems like every week I have a consistent stream of these meetings that I have to jump on, and sometimes I'm coming and going. So, anybody else?
I had a quick question. Again, like everybody else, thank you so much. We really appreciate all the work that you guys have done, and your teachers have done. My 8th grader seems to be doing well. Every time I check in with him, he says he's done. So it's the best I can do at this point. He hasn't missed out on too many assignments. You had mentioned that we'll see somewhere that they are, if they're not participating, that there'll be a flag or something somewhere. Is that in IC, or is that in Google Classrooms? Or where would I see that they're not getting the credit because they're not doing the work?
So you'll see it in Infinite Campus, and it'll show up as a little a red. I know on my end it's red, and it'll say ELNP. I'll put it in the chat here as well, and that stands for e-learning not participated. So that'll be what it's marked as far as their attendance for that day or that period, if they didn't complete what they needed to for that day that they were at home. Now, obviously, when kids are at school, we're just marking kids present, like we normally would. Same on Fridays. Fridays, if kids are hopping onto that Google Meet, they're marked as present as well. But for those 2 days that they're home, it's either they either get credit for participated, or if they don't get credit for that participated, you'll see that ELNP indication.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Anything else?
This is Rob. I had to call in. I'm sorry, my internet connection kept dropping me. So, but I don't want to take too much of the time. I mean, I just I love what you guys are trying to do, and I understand, but it's just I don't know. There's got to be some others, and maybe other people are like, it's working awesome. I don't know, but it's just not working for my kids. And I don't know what to do. So I'm struggling. My wife's struggling. It's causing a lot of stress within the house. Like everybody. I mean, I'm not the only one. So, and I'm grateful for everything that I've got. I don't know. But anyway, I'll mute and let anybody else share that they want to. I don't know. But thank you for having the meeting.
Absolutely, Rob. I appreciate you jumping on. And I'll reach out to you and touch base. I had mentioned a couple things after you had popped off last time, but I don't want to repeat it for everybody again.
No, that's fine. Yeah, and I can give you my cell number. Yes. Would you like my cell number?
Sure, yeah, go for it.
Sure, 720-363-6544. Rob Baker.
I'll reach out to you later today, Rob.
Thank you so much.
One thing I would throw to Rob also is we end up finding varsity tutors, which is an online tutoring service where they can see the tutor and the tutor can see them, and there's a whiteboard. And it worked out great for our high schoolers because they can get tutoring in any class. It even does college classes or middle school classes, every class. And the tutors we have found have been phenomenal. And you can get it pretty darn quick. Like I think today, find a tutor like for tonight if I want. And so it's been super amazing for our high schoolers who have had trouble staying caught up. So you might want to look into it. It's not cheap, but it's actually cheaper than having somebody in my house.
So where did you say that was?
It's Varsity Tutor. So if you just Google Varsity Tutors and go online, you can request and call them and talk through it. And but I'm Heather Luther. If you want to reach out to me, I'd be happy to talk to you about it, because it's been my saving grace, because I can't,
That would be amazing. Thank you so much.
I have one other question. When did the e-learning check-in start officially? Was that the 12th?
I think, yeah, September 11th is when they rolled it out. And then it wasn't active for us, I think, until that next Tuesday, which would have been like the 14th, I think. But I was actually just talking to my attendance secretary this morning that you may see some of the ELNP marked even before that.
Yeah, the 8th and the 10th just popped up that my kid was absent.
Yep. Yeah. So we're going back through and trying to verify those as best we can. But yeah, it was around the 11th, but then looks like some
so I shouldn't worry about the 8th and the 10th that just popped up as absent.
I wouldn't worry about it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I'm sorry, can I ask something also about the attendance?
Yep.
I just happened to check mine too, since we were talking about it, for my daughter, and I'm home all day. So I check in with her a lot, and she's super duper responsible. She's always, on there doing her work. She has no missing assignments at all. And all of a sudden I see that she's got a couple of absences in every single class that says that she wasn't participating. So I'm just curious, what do you think? Should I reach out to all of those teachers? Did she just not maybe jump in at the time she was supposed to? Or, they weren't live days.
You're seeing it for?
I'm sorry?
Are there specific dates that you're seeing that for?
Yeah, I'm seeing like the 21st, the 9th. Those are Mondays and Wednesdays. So those are her asynchronous days. And it says no participation. Mm-hmm. But she does all of her work.
Reach out to the teacher and just see, hey, I just happened to see this in attendance, that she didn't participate, just want to double check and see, because I thought she was on top of everything. I think that'd be totally fine. You could do that.
I think that's the same thing that I'm seeing, because I just logged in today, but I know I logged in yesterday or the day before, and she didn't have those absences. So I think
these are brand
everything
new
must have just been uploaded maybe yesterday or something.
Yeah, as of yesterday, they were still working on having all this attendance actually roll over and post, because it was originally scheduled to do it every week, but they changed that. So everything was updated last night. So that's why probably a lot of people are starting to see some things today, because it should be active today.
It looks like I did the same thing, and every class is showing that code for the 9th of September.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's a system-wide thing.
Yeah, that's a date.
Every single class has September 9th showing as.
Yeah, and mine is the 8th and the 10th for us. So. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll have to go back and see and double check my attendance secretary, because we may have to go back and just fix those if they're wiped out. I've got a couple more minutes before I got to go run teach a social studies class. Anybody have anything else?
Hi, Ben. I just wanted to add a couple things as well. I have a sixth grader, and I haven't heard this from my eighth grader, but for my sixth grader, for the days when she is schooling from home, if the teacher's a request that I'm seeing, she's frustrated that they're maybe not putting as much detail for their assignments for their days at home. So things are kind of unclear. She's not really sure. Obviously, I just tell her to ask questions and see if she has a classmate that can help. But just as feedback that way, I think a little bit more detail in those assignments for those days would be helpful. Just so that it's very clear of what they're supposed to do and where to find it and all that good stuff.
So just or Mountain Lion?
Mountain Lion.
Okay.
Yep. So that would be helpful. And then just out of curiosity, as far as the curriculum that they're going through for this year, I'm not going to be surprised if the answer is no, but as far as being on track for their grade level and getting through this year with the way it's structured, are they on track to stay kind of true to what the curriculum should be for the year, or are we kind of behind, or do you have any input on that?
Yeah, that's one of the questions I've been asking a lot of the teachers I've been checking in with. Just, where are you at in terms of what you would normally be covering, but this time of the year? And most teachers are pretty on track with what they're normally would be covering. Granted, it's maybe just a tad bit behind from what they normally would, but we spent a lot of time with that extra week that we got before school started in August, looking at our standards and looking at what are those most important things that kids really need to walk away with from each of our classes, knowing that, it's going to look different this year. And so our teachers have kind of replanned their years based on the most important things that kids need to be successful in moving on to the next grade level next year. So, but even with that, I think most teachers are still covering and pretty much on track with what they would normally cover.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to have to jump off here. So I want to just thank you guys. I know that this is a crazy time, and I appreciate all of you and your partnership with getting through this. I've got my own daughter in kindergarten this year at Franktown, and I'm of course super excited. She's going to get to go back full time here pretty soon, and because she loves school, and my wife needs her in school too, because we got 2 other little kids at home. So. Anyway, thank you guys for your help with this. Like I said, I'll probably be doing another one of these soon, maybe in the evening, so that parents who are working during the day can make it. But please reach out if there's any questions you have or anything that you need. And I appreciate your suggestions and feedback today.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks
Take care.
Thank you so much.
And I will make this recording available. I'll post this on our Sagewood website. I'll probably send it out through our weekly newsletter as well. So I'm going to hit stop recording now. And again, thank you guys for jumping on.